Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books. Well, there's been a massive DC movie update, and this kind of lets you know that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes that's not been made public in terms of the planning at Warner Brothers Discovery, what they're doing with DC movies. All we had heard in terms of any major rework with the DC movies is that supposedly David Zaslav is searching for his Kevin Feige. And like I like to say, of course, that doesn't completely make any sense if you think about it. They're in a very different position as a business and with the DC films and with the company that Marvel was at the time that Kevin Feige came on board. But it does message to the entire company. And as I've said, inside the industry, inside their company, to consumers, to filmmakers, it tells everyone, hey, this is the direction we're looking to go in. When you think about Marvel's Kevin Feige, you think about a interlocking universe. You think about very dynamic films, very commercial films, more true to the original characters, on brand. And that seems to be the direction DC is being taken in. And now there's been this article in Hollywood Reporter that just came out talking about DC at a turning point. James Gunn's pitching a secret movie. Dwayne Johnson is flexing his Superman power. The way this article's presented, you get a sense that there's now tremendous Hollywood interest in DC, even though there is no, quote, Kevin Feige. But the projects that are coming in seem like really interesting projects, and you can be sure they're going to be on brand. They're going to be done well. And at the very least, they're not going to be done in the vein of what Kevin Feige is currently doing, which is to, turn Marvel's traditional superheroes into something completely else with some kind of a political, social agenda that turns male heroes into female heroes like I did years ago at Spoof Comics. More on that another day. Okay, so this is from The Hollywood Reporter. Before we get into the article, please do be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up when you like it. It's a huge help. Channel's been doing great. I really appreciate it. DC at a turning point. James Gunn pitches secret movie. Dwayne Johnson flexes his Superman power. What is his Superman power? And just what is Matt Reeves secretly up to? With the release of Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam this Friday and DC Films head Walter Hamada, goodbye Walter Hamada, quietly ending his tenure in the coming days, DC is charting into a truly unknown territory. Unknown not to management like the Zaslav team, but unknown to the industry. They're open for business. It's obvious they're open for business, and they're looking for people to attach themselves to projects and to pitch them and show them how they think they can make money. But again, now the entire industry knows not that they're looking for a Kevin Feige, but what kind of projects that they're looking for. It messages to thousands and thousands and thousands of writers, actors, producers, showrunners. It's endless. All right, and some people in Wall Street that are paying close attention. In fact, without a permanent leader to guide the stable of some of the biggest and best-known pop culture characters in the world, DC is seeing a secret but dramatic land grab among some of the biggest players in Hollywood. The Rock, is publicly touting his vision for a future Black Adam versus Superman movie, which I don't think is going to happen, by the way. I think it's very out of continuity to do those kinds of things. It's an event. You have Batman versus Superman. It's an event. That movie did make money. But I think they are also at Warner Brothers Discovery, while they will do side projects like Joker, I think they're interested in having continuity with a larger growing story. So it just doesn't, it's jarring to do one hero versus another hero, even though the hero is an anti-hero. Sort of like build the universe, build the story. But Rock, if The Rock wants to do it and Black Adam does really well, who knows? With his words, The Rock is stoking fan desires to see Henry Cavill return as the Red Cape hero. Matt Reeves is plotting an expansion of his Batman universe, while J.J. Abrams remains in the mix as well with his own plans. J.J. Abrams, they made some kind of a, massive multi-hundred million dollar deal with before Zaslav was there. And they're going to figure out what to do with him. I don't think, they don't want any of his woke projects, that's for sure. There's no interest in that. And it makes absolutely no sense to have woke projects related to the DC universe, especially in anything that would be part of the larger story of characters interacting and the universe story that just goes on from movie to movie to movie in continuity. The Hollywood Reporter can exclusively report that James Gunn, the filmmaker behind Marvel's Guardian of the Galaxy movies, as well as Warner's DC-based Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, is angling for his own new DC project or two. Why the heck not? Sources tell the Hollywood Reporter that Gunn and producer Steve Safran are in talks with Warner's for a mystery movie, possibly more, that Gunn would tackle. Safran is already in the DC business, being a producer on Shazam and its upcoming sequel, as well as Aquaman and that movie's sequel. Warner's had no comment, but as one insider observes, a carving of the comic company's intellectual assets is happening. DC is definitely in play, says this person. How much play depends on your perspective from inside or outside the studio. Let me comment right now. When they say that DC is in play, when they say the company's intellectual assets are being carved, right? That means people are interested in doing work on the projects. It does not mean he is selling Batman. I remember early on when the merger was announced, before it was closed, people were saying, oh, they'll probably sell DC Comics. And they're not selling any of the intellectual property. None. Not Peacemaker, not Batman, not Wonder Woman. There's zero chance they're interested in selling any of the properties. They're just talking about carving them out like people are making deals for property. J.J. Abrams is already attached to the Constantine movie with Keanu Reeves coming up. That was a deal that predated the Zaslav management team. There's nothing that can be done about that except to just make sure that whatever they approve to be actually filmed is actually good and not woke. While it isn't clear what hero or teams Gunn is targeting, and the writer-director would focus on a second season of Peacemaker first, the studio's eyes are very much on Superman. Under Warner Bros. Discovery, CEO David Zaslav and Warner Bros. Pictures head Mike DeLuca and Pam Abity. Warner's has an intense desire to reprise the Cavill iteration of the hero. The project that would essentially be Man of Steel 2 is being produced by Charles Roven and is currently in search of writers. There's a wish list. They want the guy from Mission Impossible, but he's got other things to actually do. And the guy from Mission Impossible, Christopher McQuarrie, did work on Fallout, another project with Cavill in 2018. They'd love to have him, but he's actually busy doing things other than that. The Rock, however, has Superman plans of his own and has been very vocal about his desire to make a Black Adam versus Superman movie, a desire he has only reiterated more frequently in the lead up to Adam. Makes you kind of wonder, like, does he have some sort of personal fantasy about wrestling and fighting against Superman himself? Interesting to make that potentially come true, that he's kind of maybe always wanted to fight Superman and now he's actually getting close to being able to do it. Obviously, we've all heard the rumor and seen like leaked pics that Superman is in the end of Black Adam, but apparently there's not going to be any, major separate project, at least not now. This comes as he talks up his surprise cameo at the end of Adam, with the actor all but stating that Cavill will appear. Insiders are wondering if those calls are intended to goose the movie's opening weekend box office numbers. Well, why not? Or maneuver Superman onto his own chess square, or perhaps both. Probably both. Whatever the case, The Rock is definitely at the center of Cavill's return to DC, which was not without some drama of its own. His manager is Dany Garcia, his former wife, who is also his producing partner at his production company. Garcia also happens to represent Cavill. So that's the connection between The Rock and Henry Cavill, and that is how he was brought back to the film. And that was something The Rock accomplished. And if that comes off really, really well when the film is done, his star is rising at Warner Bros. Discovery. I tend to think, and the more I read of this developments and the comments about The Rock and other players that are interested in the DC world and Mike DeLuca and Abadi, I don't think The Rock is going to wind up in charge. I know this sounds silly to a lot of people, but I was kind of thinking like maybe if the film is big, they'll put him in charge like Kevin Feige. Doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Seems like he would love for it to happen, but not likely. Superman as well as Cavill were not in the initial plans for Black Adam. The idea was hatched during a round of reshoots for the movie earlier this year, but the cameo was nixed by Hamada. The executive who for the last 4 years had tried hard to move DC beyond the era where one filmmaker, in this case Zack Snyder, had an inordinate amount of influence and could command an entire slate for years. Unless, of course, that was Ann Sarnoff, who had her own agenda there. Hamada had his own Superman plans, one of them involving introducing a black Superman with a multi-decade spanning story by writer Ta-Nehisi Coates. Now, how's that for a silly idea? Because, you can play with these characters. Like, you can have Joker have his own story. Joker was out of continuity and all that. But Joker being out of continuity, even though he's a really important villain, he's been played by multiple actors at this point, multiple actors at this point, does it make a difference, really, as a standalone story? Does that affect understanding of the brand of Batman, or understanding even of the awareness of how Joker fits in the universe? And the overall, always think about the larger overall story. I think that's a major testing point to decide, to understand what would they do? What would you do if you were in charge of it? Would you mind having a side Joker project or a villain project? I mean, now the movie made $1 billion. So, obviously anyone would say, that seems like a good idea. But if you think about it, these standalone insights into a villain or an anti-hero, it's not a problem. As long as that anti-hero doesn't kill one of your superheroes, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Alternatively, a black Superman, if a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 15-year-old, whatever, whoever's interested in your property and your longer story are seeing there's a white Superman, but no, there's a black Superman, now there's an Asian Superman, now Henry Cavill's playing it, now, the other people are playing the character. How do you do that? How do you keep any kind of coherent thing going on if you're going to change around what the hero looks like, who the hero is, what their backstory is? It's confusing. So then when you have a discontinuity like that, there's a misunderstanding about what the brand is about, what the character is about, all the other interrelated characters that were relying on that brand. You can't do that kind of stuff. So while this is going and it's not been canceled yet, I think the likelihood is it's never going to come together. I mean, look, Zaslav has admitted it. He's made mistakes before. Everyone's made mistakes before in every kind of business and any personal, professional part of life. We've all made mistakes. So they could make this movie. This would cost them greatly. It doesn't matter how much money the movie would make. It would completely throw out of whack everything they're trying to do in terms of building what Zack Snyder was starting to do, but do it in a more meaningful way even. A larger story where the characters have relationships that carry from film to film, where someone who loves what they did with Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot, prior to Wonder Woman 1984, could go and follow her from film to film, follow Superman from film to film. Even just having Henry Cavill as Superman, as said that they're starting to do, is they're planning, all these cameos for him in these related DC films. People will go and see and keep interest in him just because as long as he's executed reasonably well, they'll want to see him in future films that he's in, and it'll create interest in the other characters. It does work. It's been done successfully in comic books for decades. Not so much recently because there's comics are terrible mostly. They're from the standpoint, at the very least, of continuity. Of like, well, what happened in this issue matters a year from now or 2 years from now. If you want someone to invest their interest and their money in your content, and things happen in your story, but they don't actually matter to the overall story, and they don't matter in continuity a year or two from now, well, what's the point of investing in your stories? That's the weakness that comics has had for a couple of decades now. That's something I want to change. That's important to me. After Walter Hamada said no, The Rock went around the executive. What a body slam. Turning to DeLuca and Abity, who gave it the thumbs up. A furious round of negotiating occurred before Labor Day. A deadline was insisted by Warner's, with this scene shot in mid-September, which, if you think about it, what? What did they do? They shot the scene, including Henry Cavill as Superman, in mid-September. Mid-September, and now a month later, the film is being released? Well, that was something. I mean, that's pretty impressive. So these people are moving. They're not messing around. They're getting stuff done. And if they say a good idea, they're going to go for it. I think it's a great idea. I think it's going to help the film a lot. Meanwhile, in Gotham City, filmmaker Reeves is quietly making his own expansion plans. Reeves is developing a sequel to his The Batman, which grossed a respectable, that's very respectable, $770 million worldwide when it was released in March. Already a series spin-off focusing on Colin Farrell's Penguin is on its way to filming next year. But Reeves is plotting more. The filmmaker is meeting with writers and directors to build out movies. Yes, movies, not just series, focused on Batman's rogues gallery, his villains, both established and more obscure, with characters ranging from the Scarecrow to Clayface to Professor Pig. All those projects are in the very early stages of gestation. So why wouldn't you do that? The Joker generated $1 billion. If you make that sort of a collection of films and you imply it's a collection and, hey, you really ought to check this out. If it's, maybe Todd Phillips will head that up. Who knows? But you can't, those are low budget movies. The Joker was a $50 million movie. So they can't lose money on stuff like that. And that's the kind of stuff they should do. And again, you do a standalone Clayface film. Is that going to blow the continuity? Very different than if you do a standalone Black Superman, honestly. You can't do that. You can do a standalone Penguin movie, and it doesn't matter who plays the Penguin. It is unclear where the Superman movies leave Abrams. That's the whole point, I think. Who is still on track to produce Coates' movie centered on the last son of Krypton. That feature would exist outside any larger DC movie continuity, much like Todd Phillips' Joker movies. Well, you know why I don't think that would work, and it would be very damaging to the brand if they made the mistake to do that. I don't think they'll do it because I think it's straight up silly. And they're pretty smart. The mega producer had a few setbacks when some of his DC shows, based in the supernatural corners of DC and featuring characters such as Constantine and Zatanna, were scrapped at Warner Bros. Discovery HBO Max streaming service. They were woke and they were expensive. So no and no. They are now being shopped to other streamers and will not happen. There's no way they're doing a woke Constantine TV series. Contractually, it may be allowed, but there's no way it's going to come together and get done when they've agreed with him to have Keanu Reeves back on Constantine. They're not going to do that. But it's interesting to see that there are drastic changes in how they're managing these properties in the films. They're now being shopped to other streamers, sure. But he's not out of the game yet. And another Hollywood producer is in the mix for vying for a piece of the DC pie. Again, that's how they're carving up the intellectual properties. They're not selling them. All of this takes place as Hamada, who did not attend the Atom premiere. What's the matter with you, Hamada? Oh, he's mad because, The Rock went over his head. Could not smell what The Rock was cooking. Sorry, I had to do it. In New York, October 12th, how could you not do that? He should have shown up. Packs away the final personal effects from his Burbank studio lot office ahead of his last day sometime this week. Obviously, he's not getting anything done. He should just stay home. The executive is not even taking a producing deal. He wasn't obviously offered one. A move that's traditional among the execs who are being let go but given a soft landing and a courteous thank you for your service. To many, that speaks volumes about how rough the transition from the AT&T era to Discovery under Zaslav has been, including the controversial cancellation of the Batgirl movie. I just saw an interesting video from Midnight's Edge, great channel, talking about their theory on why Batgirl was canceled. And long story short, it was getting rid of the Ben Affleck Batman, putting in back Michael Keaton as an old mentor-style Batman for a launch into new female versions of all the major DC heroes, which I've heard bits and pieces of. I haven't seen it reported in a lot of places, but I think they're onto it. I think that makes sense. And it was what Hamada and Ann Sarnoff were trying to do. And no, it's absurd. There's no you want to do a separate Supergirl movie? No problem there. Cast it right, script it right, do some stuff with it. Don't interfere with the larger continuity. Don't confuse people as to what the super brand is. They can do that. I don't know if they're going to. I don't know if they're going to concentrate on something like that. I think they would think twice because it could interfere with Superman if it's not done right. They need to get the main stuff under control first. Then they can mess around with some of this ancillary stuff. And it takes place in the shadow of the utter failure. Utter failure. Just keep in mind, this is Hollywood Reporter, so they've got their own agenda. This article doesn't exist without an agenda. Though I think the article is good for the DC properties because it just shows you there's a lot of activity going on. There's a lot of opportunity. If you've got some ideas and you've got some good contacts, get in there and offer them something. Let's do a project there. I don't consider it an utter failure. I think it'd be easy for them to have picked someone and just say, hey, you're in charge of the DC universe. Okay. But no, I don't see the projects are moving ahead. So as you know, the Kevin Feige announcement and the search, they're going to find him over a 60-day period necessarily. Hey, it's been a month. It's been 2 months. Where's the Kevin Feige guy? It's like, well, it could take a little bit longer if that really were what you're looking for. But if what you're looking for is what I said, which is it's messaging to the entire industry, the kinds of projects, people, of things you are looking for and things you are not looking for to save a lot of conversation, a lot of trouble, and get a lot of new opportunities pitched, which it looks like this is kind of causing. Yeah, that's what they were doing. After months of searching for Zaslav, he came close to hiring Dan Lin, but basically with Dan Lin wanted a big financial deal for his production company and a lot of freedom and things like that, and it's not what they were looking for. One thing about Feige was he had no other interests at the time that he was working on the Marvel Universe properties. It's not like he had lots of other production deals and other things going on. He had the ability to focus on it. At the very least, that's what they want, if they were finding someone like that, which I don't think they're that concerned about. For now, DeLuca, who is known for his fanboy roots and displays a deep knowledge of esoteric comic lore, as every comic fan should, remains firmly in charge of DC. He greenlit Joker 2, has been making decisions on... Who would not greenlight Joker 2? Has been making decisions on Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom and The Flash, getting things fixed, and has been meeting with filmmakers. Rumors abound that his role could evolve into one that's more permanent, even exclusive oversight of DC. As for Johnson, The Rock. Last week, he publicly expressed interest in helping guide the search for a DC boss. I'm really starting to feel like, well, The Rock, he's going to have his moment, but I don't think it's going to continue. The thing that's most important with a company is, can you get the job done? Do you have the people in place to get the job done? And it's not just hiring someone and saying, hey, be the next Kevin Feige, and then you turn your back on it and that's it. The job done is attracting the right kind of projects, the right kind of people, distancing yourself from the wrong kind of projects, the wrong kind of people, making sure that talent is happy, making sure that the content is up to snuff, things are on target, things are moving forward, we have new opportunities coming in, we have more and more people interested in investing themselves and their reputations in our content. That's what Zaslav is interested in getting. I mean, it's every part of the company. It's not just the DC universe. He just wants the management to be under control. It seems under control to me. More and more of it. This article is very encouraging to just see, like, they got their people in place. They're doing stuff. They've got it under control. This is gonna be profitable. It's gonna work. The best position that I could be in for DC, according to The Rock, is one as an advisor where I can help. I love DC. It's in my blood, Johnson told Variety. on the Atom red carpet. In the spirit of growing up with the DC Universe, I'm here to help any way I can, including looking for and finding the right leader or leaders. Okay. He did great with the Henry Cavill situation. So when you have someone that cares about what the mission, the overall mission, and people are like looking to help any way they can, which is, by the way, I don't know if you know what Comicsgate is, but it's one of the reasons I love Comicsgate, is everyone tries to help each other get what they're trying to do. And everyone has a different little skill set, or they have some of a platform. You have a platform. I have a platform. Everyone helps each other to accomplish what anyone's passionate about trying to do. And you see that kind of thing here where The Rock, like, well, I can get you Henry Cavill. It's like, okay, great. Thanks. And make sure he gets paid for that in one way or another. Doesn't mean he should be in charge of the DC universe. Doesn't mean he shouldn't. But it does mean, like, his attitude's in the right place. His heart's in the right place. And he's trying to make something good happen. That search marches on, even as IP continues to be taken off the board by power players. Right now, it's the Wild West, says one insider. Everyone is trying to grab as much as they can, and this is exactly what happens in a leadership vacuum. It's frustrating to see people who probably are good attaching themselves to good content. I think, it's interesting. James Gunn, I don't know what he can do good work. Is he going to do good work again? I don't know. I would be surprised if a lot of junk is allowed to get out. Wonder Woman 1984, I don't think ever would have happened under this new management team. And I don't think you need a new Kevin Feige or The Rock to do that, to make sure that doesn't happen. One Warner's insider disputes the idea of a leadership vacuum. Well, me too, but, saying the studio is not standing still and is moving ahead on several fronts, focusing on some of the A-list characters while planning and developing the wave beyond that. A script treatment for Wonder Woman 3 by Patty Jenkins is expected imminently, and a script for Flash sequel is already written by Aquaman scribe David Leslie Johnson McGolrick. That makes sense. It's good to know that if The Flash is a hit, they have a sequel ready. It's obviously going to be similar to the vein of whatever The Flash winds up being, which Zaslav has said he likes, so you have to assume it's good. And it's going to be at least on brand, I can tell you that much. And they're ready to go, so they don't have to spend a year or 2 years working on a screenplay. I mean, they're making investments, and they have people interested in continuing if it works, which is makes it a lot more likely that they would do a Flash sequel, because they'd be ready to go. All they have to do is write a check and keep Ezra Miller out of prison. With Superman, that may be harder. With Superman back on the active block, plus Reeves' The Batman sequel moving forward, it puts the company's big stars in the big screen rotation. DeLuca and Abity are said to wanting more things in development and more things on the runway ready to go as an opposite ethos from Hamada, who took a more targeted approach. Look what he wound up with. Johnson, for one, is keen on moving beyond DC's A-list of characters. As he told the New York Times for a profile published Monday, it's a safer bet to continue to invest in the IP that the world knows. The Justice League, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Aquaman. I understand that, but it took convincing to get the studio to look past the Justice League into the DC universe, and there's some really cool characters in there. You've just got to give it a shot and trust the investment. Well, this is not a sales pitch. You've got to give it a shot and trust the investment. That's not a sales pitch. Apparently, he was working on the Black Adam for 15 years. We'll see how the Black Adam does, and how it fits in with the overall universe. It's their, anti-hero property. It's exciting to have The Rock attached to something. He has a huge fan base. A lot of people interested in him. He's obviously passionate about the universe. I don't know. But the small characters, maybe that's why they're already looking at some of Batman's villains. It worked pretty well with Venom over at Sony, pulling Venom out of the Spider-Man franchise. And it worked fantastic with Joker. So I could see that, as long as it's attached to a larger amount of the IP. And if it's attached to an overall story, the Joker was just done so well, wasn't it? Because it's part of the Batman story and characters, but it's not part of any kind of continuity. So it doesn't hurt anything. these things have to be done carefully to not mess things up. Please be sure to leave comments for this video. You know I love your comments. I really appreciate them. Always try to read every comment. I comment on as many as possible. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up when you like it. Really appreciate that. And I will see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.